Hey lovely sexy hobby people, welcome to today's video, which is going to be a look at the Mantic Dungeon Depths Terrain Crate. I picked this up from Entoyment Games in Poole in Dorset. Paid £54 for it. I think the RRP is normally 60, but let's crack on and have a look, shall we? Right, let's get the cellophane off. Okay, so on the sides it just looks like that, and then your end looks like that. But on the back you get a picture of the contents, which look pretty good. We've got some sort of astrolabe there, piles of loot, we got piles of gold coins, we got a sword and a stone, we got some dungeon torture equipment as well, a ladder, we got some sconces, we got some dungeon trap tiles, tables, benches and so on. There's supposed to be 72 pieces in here. Come on, there you come. That's better. Now, if I remember rightly, most of these Mantic terrain crates come in some form of plastic bags. So, here we go. I mean, that's a big box for, as you can see, that was what we had in the box. So let's get it out. Handy boxes, they're good for storage. I am just going to bring this blind down a little bit. That I think is a little better. So shall we open? We have our dungeon torture room there. We have our stuff that you could find in a wizard study here, I suppose. We have our treasure. We have tables, chairs and benches, which is great. You can't have too many tables, chairs and benches when you're doing things like Dungeons and Dragons, etc. We have some piles of rubble and boxes, etc. Here's our dungeon traps. And we got some rugs and furniture and the such. So what do we do? Should we do the boring bit first, shall we? Let's have a look at, ta-da, we got rugs. So we have 2 picture frames, although you could paint one of these, probably paint this oval one silver and have it as a mirror. We've got 2 decorative chairs, different styles. This one's got spikes on the top of it. Then we have a long runner, and then we have actually this is a hanging tapestry. So if you look at that, that is a hanging tapestry. So, one tapestry, so you've got the bar that it would hang from, and then you've got some tassels down the bottom, we've got a little bit of filigree around the edge. Now, if you are a reasonable freehand artist, I'm sure you could potentially create a scene to go in there. It is textured on the inside, so as long as you keep your paints well thinned, you're not going to remove that texture, but I'm sure you could do something for that. We have a runner. So in the Haunted Mansion pack that I reviewed a little while ago, we did get a long table, and I suppose you could put the long table on that as part of like the dining setup. It's nice to have these chairs. So the chairs look like that, and then your 2 picture frames look like that. And your runner is that. So we have, what have we got here? 6 pieces there. What's next? Let's do the crates and stuff. Now, again, this is really handy. Oh, hello, we got little rats as well. So we got a little swarm of rats. We got an individual rat. And we've got a skull. And we've got another rat. Now we have a pile of rubble, barricade, a log pile, and then we have some barrels and crates. So we have these barrels and crates. Oh, we have another skull. So the rubble is just 2 little piles of rubble. So, you know, you can use this as scatter terrain. I've already got these. I think these came with the ruined town, I think, potentially. So we've already got those, but I don't really mind having more of this stuff because it's great for doing, adding into terrain pieces. We have these barricades. So these barricades, just a couple of boxes and upturned tables and barrels, basically, and that's looks like a door that they've used there. Okay, so we have these terrain pieces, these barricades that you could use to block off dungeon corridors, that sort of thing. If you are in particularly doing anything where you're like doing trading goods, these are handy, these piles of crates and barrels. Again, I've got these already, and I don't think they came from the Haunted Mansion. Again, I think these were from the ruined town, potentially. That I got those from. So I have these as well that came with another set. But again, something like this, never an issue. A pile of logs speaks for itself. And then we have a tiny little swarm of rats. So there's 3 rats there together. Then we have 2 rather large skulls, which might be okay for Warhammer and Age of Sigmar, but for, say for example, Dungeons and Dragons, they're a little bit big. And then we have 2 little rats, 2 rats on their own. Now with these, the way that they've moulded these is that the tail curls around their butt and alongside. So that's those rats. So what have we got? We got 8 pieces of rubble, 4, so 14, 19 pieces so far. What's next? Let's have a look at the tables, shall we? Bingo. Right, here we go. Oh, what's that? No idea. That, I suppose that's supposed to be a little, what, collection of logs in a fire? It looks tiny little thing like that. Supposed to be, I'm assuming it's just a collection of burnt logs or something. Or you could paint it to look like crystals, maybe. Not entirely sure what that is. We have some plates on their own that you can populate a table with. We have a collection of tankards all pushed together there, probably in the centre of a table. And then we have, oh, we got another one of these. So again, I really don't know what that's supposed to be. Like I say, it could just be a collection of logs for a fire or something, maybe. Collection of coals. Now, here we go. I always hate these long, thin. So they use a polyvinyl plastic here. Very similar to what, like, your 172 little scale Airfix soldiers used to be made out of. And the 1/32 scale ones. But it does mean that they're susceptible to bending and warping, which, as you can see on these, has happened quite a bit. Now, I should be able to straighten them using the boiling water and ice cold water dip method. So put it in the boiling water, straighten it, and then straight into the ice cold water. So I'll have to put some ice cubes in the freezer, I think, or some water for ice cubes in the freezer before anybody corrects me. So I think that's probably what I'm going to have to do with those. So there's two of those. We have two little three-legged stools. We have a table which is banded at the ends. There, like that. And we have another table which is just a fairly simple kitchen table. We have a round table and we have two benches and two chairs. So very simple decoration. So the chairs, the two chairs look like that. The stools, like I said, just three-legged milk stools, to be quite honest. And then the benches look like that. These would be, I'm assuming, would match this table. So, and then we have a round table like so. So, what have we got? We have got another 3, 6, 9, 11, 15. So we had 19 previously, so that's 29, 34 items so far. What? Next, should we look at the dungeon traps? Let's have a look at the dungeon traps. Right, here we go. Ooh, cool. So this is, I mean, it looks like a wedge, a wooden wedge with some rope attached to it. And then these dungeon traps, I suppose you could like put down into a 25 by 25 square. Let me just check the dimensions on those. Trusty ruler. So 1 inch by 1 inch. So approximately 25mm by 25mm. So yeah, they're just shy of 25 by 25, and they're just shy of 1 inch by 1 inch. But they will sit on a standard 1 inch by 1 inch grid to essentially indicate dungeon traps. So we have like a bear trap there. We have a trap door. We have a pit with spikes. And then we have some sort of contraption which would come out of the wall with knives on. Swing out of the wall like that. And then this one I'm assuming is poison. The poison coming up through the holes in that tile. And like I said, we've got this wedge on a bit of rope. And then we have a lever. A trapdoor lever or a spring trap lever. And that lever looks like that. And then we have a ladder. And I like that ladder, that's pretty cool. You can see the knotting on the sides of it. So that is another 5, 8, what did we have before? 34? So 42 so far. What next? Let's have a look at the wizard study stuff. Oh, I've seen something in there which looks interesting. Oh, now this is good. I like this. We have, that's all bent to buggery. Have to straighten that out. But we have, and these have fared, I think, a lot better than the other ones. But we have a couple of candle sconces, or stands, here. That one will need straightening, that one's fine. So a couple of those. We have some sort of water basin with swirling water. So I'm assuming it's similar to what would be Galadriel's mirror, I suppose you could use. Then we have this sideboard with stuff on the shelving. Don't know if you can see that. Right, then we have, so we've done those bits. We have this like lunar calendar, mechanical lunar calendar or contraption of some sort. It's a little bit bent, but that looks cool. Again, you can see that. Right, and we have another chair for our wizard to sit in. Then we have some piles of books and a scroll. So we have this pile of books here, this tall stack, which is really cool. I like that. That would look really good on a desk somewhere. Then we have a small pile, and then we have this scroll with a dagger on it. So I don't know if you can see those. So we got those. Then we have two sets of, no, we have one set of candles, tiny candles. And then we have a set of bottles and vials there. And then we have a headwig. We have an owl on a perch. Just there. So look like that. Cool. Liking it a lot. So that's another 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. What do we have? 42. So that's 54. Now we have the dungeon torture equipment. Let's have a look at this. Come on, here we come. Right, here we go. We have a coffin. We have a skeleton to go in the coffin. We have a rack. We have a torture table with manacles. We have the lid for the coffin. And we have a trolley with some torturer's tools on them. And then we have a mummy reaching out with its arm. Now this sarcophagus here will fit either an Egyptian style front on it, or you can go Iron Maiden with the sealed spikes on the inside. I don't know if you can see the spikes. The spikes on the inside there. The mummy looks good. Nicely detailed wrappings. Our torture chamber looks a bit wonky. Our torture rack looks a bit wonky, personally. There's some flash on this as well that will need trimming away. But that's our torture rack. Our coffin. So the lid needs straightening up. But the coffin will take the skeleton on the inside. And the skeleton looks like that. So our coffin looks like this. Our torture table, again, this is a bit skew-whiff, so that's going to need straightening out. Our trolley with torture implements on. So there you go, that is another 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So what's that? 64. $64 items so far. And finally, our loot. Because let's face it, that's what dungeon delving is all about. The loot. We have pile of gold, pile of gold, pile of gold, pile of gold. Okay, we have some interesting stuff. We have a sword in a stone. Bit on the nose, I suppose, but you know, sword in a stone. We have 2 small piles of gold that looks like this. And you can see there's plenty of gold coins on there, and like goblets, helmets. There's a box there with more coins. There's like purses, leather purses, and so on. And then we have similar in these two larger piles, but these have like more chests in them, and so on. We then have this pedestal, which looks like you could put this bowl and goblet set on. Bit of flash through the centre of the bowl that will need trimming away. Or you have this cushion with a crown on. Then we have a pile of armour and shields and weapons. A coin purse. And then a pile of treasure chests. And there's some parchment here, which if you wanted to, you could either put some writing on it or maybe a map. So there you go. So what do we had? We had 64, 68, 70. I'd make it more than 72. I'll make it about 75. Okay. There you go. That's by my counting anyway. Anyhow, that was the Mantic terrain crate for Dungeon Depths. These are all useful things that I can have in the games of D&D that I'm playing with my friends at the moment. Particularly these treasure hoards. They'll be handy. I wonder if my Dungeon Master would like to make use of the traps. Because they're good visual representations, you know, to be able to put them down and say, yeah, there was a bear trap on that square, and so on. And then, you know, we've had more tables, etc., which are always good when you're populating things like a tavern or a barrack space. And yeah, cool. Good. Really good. I will get some of this stuff put onto the turntable and do the turntable shots as well. And hopefully I will see you in the next video. Alright, take care. Bye bye.